In the Purge election year, Joe's Deli serves as a symbol for the American dream for Joe and his community. But some of the images seen around the store have a greater significance than you might have realized. Election year shows us the height of a revolution staged by the lower class against the government. This is essentially the new civil rights movement of the United States. In the world of the Purge, the poor are discriminated against. Not only can the wealthy better afford to protect themselves during the Purge, but if you read into the lore detailed on the new founders' website, you'll see that they've enacted laws like the Contributing Citizens provision of 2019 that straight up allow discrimination against the poor. There are both subtle and not so subtle comparisons to the original civil rights movement that took place in the United States 86 years prior. Joe's Deli is his pride and joy, his little piece of the pie, as he puts it. For him, the American dream means owning and operating his own business that serves the community, but his dream, like the dream of his ancestor Martin Luther King Jr., is crushed when his insurance company intentionally raises his rates one day before the Purge.
They just raised the premium on my Purge coverage by thousands, the day before the damn Purge. If I don't pay it by tomorrow, I have no Purge coverage for this store. In previous Purge movies, we've learned that weapon and home security companies are the most likely shills for the political party that created the Purge, the NFFA. An election year suggests that insurance companies have joined that category. But some of the images seen in and around the deli are more than just a generic symbol of civil rights. They reference specific historical events that foreshadow what happens at the end of the movie. There are also more modern references. In fact, election year may have actually predicted some future events. So stick around to the end of this video to hear all about it. This video is sponsored by Audible. I hereby proclaim that all men shall subscribe to CZsWorld and ring the death bell for all notifications. Welcome to Things You Missed. If you've been waiting for a video where emo Abraham Lincoln, regular Abraham Lincoln, and angry Abraham Lincoln all collide, this is the episode for you. If you want to hear about the hidden meanings encoded in the third Purge movie, you are also in the right place. This would be the last installment directed by series creator James Demonaco, although he would stay on as a screenwriter going forward. If you look at election year literally, it looks like the silliest, most ridiculous entry, but we can find deeper meaning when looking on a metaphorical level. Let's get into it. All around Washington, D.C., there are NFFA logos and advertisements, but in low-income areas like the area near the freeway underpass and right around the deli, we see that the banners have been defaced, a symbol of the tension that exists between the social classes. The divide between the rich and poor is highlighted by the use of technology. The movie is set in 2040, so you'd expect some futuristic gadgets like Leo's remote detonating briefcase and GPS tracking bullets. But Joe, Marcos, and Laney use devices that feel outdated even today. From standard definition monitors to broken grandpa clocks to Samsung Galaxy S2s and even this monstrosity. As I mentioned, the deli is decorated with photos of the most prominent figures of the original civil rights movements, like Malcolm X, who was an advocate of African American human rights in the 1960s, who was criticized for refusing to denounce violence as a form of self-defense.
Well, Martin is your friend, yet you would disagree with his approach to what he wants to accomplish.
Definitely. If his approach would bring about what the black man in America needs to completely eliminate the problem that we have, I would say well and good.
The Purge election year has its own Malcolm X. It's Dante Bishop, the homeless man turned revolutionary fighter who planned to assassinate the NFFA's presidential candidate. The independent candidate, Charlie Roan, criticizes him on his methods.
Mr. Bishop, I've heard stories of tactics that you employ on Purge night. I can't say that I agree with any of it.
Bishop changes his ways in the end, but they do share the same fate of being taken out by extremists. Another picture seen in the deli is of Harriet Tubman. Harriet was born into slavery in the 1820s, and her most notable accomplishment was operating the Underground Railroad, a network of secret routes and safe houses designed to help escort African Americans out of slavery in the South. The new civil rights movement isn't about slavery and race though, it's about money and homelessness. So the new Harriet Tubman is Laney Rucker, who spends her Purge night working in a triage van to help Purge victims get to underground safe houses throughout the city where they can hide out and get medical attention. Tubman also worked as a nurse during the American Civil War and notably led a military operation known as the Raid on Combahee Ferry, where 750 people were rescued from slavery on Union ships. At one point, Laney's character is implied to also have some kind of notable military background, but it's never explained or expanded upon and isn't relevant to the story in any way.
That's Laney Rucker, Kimmy.
Laney Rucker? They called you Pequeña Muerte. Little death. Yo, you're my motherfucking hero.
This detail seems to only exist to explain how she knows how to use a gun, or as an added parallel to Harriet Tubman.
Then there's Frederick Douglass. Like the others, he was an important figure in slavery abolition and civil rights. He went on to hold several political offices, and at one point, he was nominated to become the Vice President of the United States. If he does have a counterpart in the movie, I'm guessing that it's Senator Roane. But there may be another historical figure who serves as a stronger reflection of Roane. The most recognizable person pictured here, the true patriot of his time, was Tom Brady. This was before he became a Buccaneer, but other than that, there's Martin Luther King Jr., who of course is the most prolific civil rights speaker of all time, with his famous I Have a Dream speech. There are a couple of pictures of him in the Deli, but I want to look at this one in particular, which was taken at a press conference on November 5th, 1964, just after Lyndon B. Johnson was elected as president. Johnson was known for his domestic policies known as the Great Society Program and the War on Poverty Program, which assisted millions of families out of poverty during his administration. Senator Roane's platform is all about helping out low-income people, primarily by promising to end the purge. The day this photo was taken, Johnson spoke with King Jr. to thank him for his support and ask him to get behind the poverty initiative.
We're going to spend a lot of time with Shriver on our poverty thing. I wish you'd give a little thought to it because that offers a lot of opportunity for our young people. Good. And again, let me congratulate you.
So as you can see, there are a lot of similarities between Senator Roane and Lyndon B. Johnson, but there may be one more parallel in looking at the circumstances of when they took office. Johnson was elected shortly after becoming president due to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, while Roane was elected shortly after the assassination of Caleb Warrens, the NFFA leader that gets sniped down at the end of the movie. The main characters would not be the only ones who represent a person or group of historical significance, and there would be many other secrets waiting to be uncovered. Here at the NFFA, we take President's Day very seriously to honor our great founding fathers like President Bracken and President Warrens. That's why this year, we're teaming up with Audible to offer you a free 30-day trial. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment with the largest selection of ad-free audiobooks, original entertainment, and podcasts. You'll even find guided fitness, meditation, and sleep tracks to keep you healthy before this year's purge. The newest plan, Audible Plus, gives you full access to the popular Plus catalog, all available to download and stream anywhere on any device. Audible Plus is all about finding new favorites or new formats, helping you discover that podcast or audiobook you wouldn't have even considered before. One title we recommend checking out is 1984 by George Orwell. We found it very uplifting and inspirational. To redeem this offer, visit audible.com/CZsWorld or text CZsWorld to 500-500 to start your free 30-day trial. You'll find that link in the description. That's audible.com/CZsWorld or text CZsWorld to 500-500. The previous film, The Purge Anarchy, started to explore how the NFFA was creating a religious aspect to the purge as part of their wider effort to manipulate people into participating. Here, it's front and center, as the new NFFA presidential candidate is a minister who holds a midnight ceremony on Purge Night where less fortunate people and political enemies are to be sacrificed. There are many moments that build up to the finale at the cathedral, from the first shot of the evening showing a sun setting behind a building that looks like a church, to a church being the only location labeled on the GPS system that the NFFA's mercenaries use to track the senator. The United States has something called an establishment clause, the separation of church and state, but we see that all of the new founding fathers are the religious leaders serving as ministers and priests. This isn't a separate religion that they happen to be a part of, this is clearly an NFFA event. Minister Owens even admits that Midnight Purge Mass belongs to his party. His first name is Edwidge, a French name meaning war. He is a minister of war, and as Senator Roane suggests in a debate, murder is his new religion. He's joined at the altar by Harmon James. Harmon is also a French name meaning soldier, and he's the one carrying out the ceremonious purging. On the topic of nomenclature, there are a couple of notable names on the other side as well. As I mentioned in his horror history episode, Dante Bishop is given a name for the first time in this movie, previously only being referred to as a stranger. Dante refers to Dante's Inferno, a famous 14th century poem about the journey through hell, while his surname Bishop would refer to the clergy member in the Christian church. So his name comes off as an oxymoron. Perhaps he's split somewhere between heaven and hell. He has good intentions and wants to help people, but uses violent tactics to make his points. At the end, he has to choose between sin and virtue. Also of note, he has a right-hand man whose name is Angel. Earlier on the streets, a crazy purger chants about the gates of hell. The movie seems to be showing us the contrast between traditional religious beliefs where behavior would dictate going to heaven or hell, and the NFFA's new distorted religious system where sin is glorified. One name that we've seen come up in every Purge movie is Sabian. Arlo Sabian was the NFFA chief of staff in the first Purge, Mr. Sabian was a neighbor in the Purge and a diner patron in the Purge Anarchy, and now Mrs. Sabian is a customer at Joe's Deli.
Mr. Sabian, I wish I knew.
The name Sabian is a staple in every movie made by director James Demonaco, as is Staten Island. You can spot some Channel 11 Purge coverage of Staten Island in the TV in the back of the senator's living room. And speaking of stuff that appears in other Purge movies, were we not supposed to notice that when the sirens sound, they just ripped an unused shot from the Purge Anarchy? This is clearly LA. My only guess is that they were trying to encompass how far the Purge series has come with this sequence, which starts in the senator's home. The first movie takes place all inside of one home, and then shows Los Angeles, where the second movie takes place, then shows Washington, D.C., which is the capital. It's representative of the entire country. There's also a connection to the original film in that the flashback of Roan's family being purged takes place in the same night as that movie. Before the NFFA hired mercenaries invade her home, there were a few significant items that I noticed upstairs, like these crane ornaments. In Japanese culture, cranes are said to represent good fortune and longevity, two traits that seem appropriate for Barnes and Roan, who survive until the next morning against all odds. There's also a turtle on the senator's mantle, a Chinese symbol for longevity. This is seen just before Leo bursts into the room and has her put on a bulletproof vest, her metaphorical turtle shell, if you will. Leo and Roan escape just before the bad guys break into the room, and their leader unmasks himself, revealing his affiliation with many of the most evil groups throughout history. We've got to slow it down to understand all of them. The more well-known ones are the Nazi symbol, the party responsible for the Holocaust, the Ku Klux Klan, a white supremacist group, and the Confederate flag of the breakaway state that fought for slavery in the American Civil War. He also has a tattoo that says 88, which is supposedly a numerical code. H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, so this translates to HH, which stands for Hail Hitler. Another tattoo says AB, an acronym for Aryan Brotherhood, a neo-Nazi prison gang and organized crime syndicate. My Google search history feels very dirty after looking this stuff up, and that's coming from me. My favorite search result, though, was when I looked up what a spiderweb tattoo on one's head signifies, and found the answer: a serious lapse in judgment. Upon looking further, I found out it meant that they were in prison. The assault rifle on his temple signifies that he's a gun carrier, and the words "Free in America" are written across his face, which isn't a bad message by itself, but takes a darker meaning in the world of the Purge. On the back of his head, he has the American Eagle. I'm guessing it's not because he's a fan of the clothing brand or the roller coaster, although he does seem to like spiderwebs. There's also an American flag, almost as if the US has become the newest evil group in this universe. We see that the country definitely attracts negative attention when a story on the news tells about the latest travel trend called murder tourism.
We're here to experience the purge, to kill, release all the anger and hate. Be like Americans.
I think this is kind of a commentary on how other countries see America today, where the rate of mass shootings is much higher than any other developed country. Of course, I'm American, so I can only assume how other countries see us. There are also several examples of medieval weapons, like a guillotine, a pendulum, and a mace being used to purge, which I see as a symbol for the primitive nature of weapon regulations in the US. The murder tourists play an interesting role later in the story, as Barnes is trying to escort Senator Roan to safety, and they're stalked by a drone, which we later find out to be a Russian drone. In other words, this American politician is being followed around by Russian spies. The Purge election year was released in 2016, which was an election year in real life for the United States. It is said that Russia tried to influence the results of that election by creating bots on social media websites to spread propaganda. The drone is literally a Russian bot, and when Leo shoots it down, the explosion lights up a mural that says "Keep Washington Beautiful." If it's intentional, it's an interesting metaphor. I'll just let you decide how intentional it really is, though. The movie came out in July, but the election didn't begin until the end of the year. It's hard to say when the Russian initiative would have begun, seeing as how I'm not a member of the CIA or the FBI. However, paranoia of Russian plans has been a concept in American culture that goes back for decades. That being said, the next scene does seem to predict a Russian collusion, where bot accounts on social media pretending to be American citizens would spread information that might influence the election. In The Purge, we have these Russian tourists masquerading around in Washington, D.C. in the costumes of typical American icons, and they almost quite literally influence the election by purging one of the candidates. So we've discussed how many characters and groups have historical or societal significance in this story. What about Kimmy and her Purge gang? We first meet her trying to steal candy from Joe's Deli, and even when confronted about it, she's resistant to give it up. Kimmy represents greed. She comes back during the Purge with the intention of stealing back the candy bar.
And I want my candy bar. And I'm gonna take it.
When she returns, we see that she's already got it all. Nice cars decorated with bright lights, bejeweled guns made of solid gold, and flashy costumes because
the Purge is Halloween for adults!
No. Halloween as an adult is Halloween for adults. I appreciate the positive energy though, dude. Kimmy and her gang are basically the typical American millennial archetype. Of course, this movie is set in 2040, so they aren't actually millennials. This is just another social commentary on our own time period. She isn't willing to buy the candy bar because she feels she just has the rights to take it.
If I want some candy, I'll take some candy. I'll take whatever the like I want!
Her greed isn't limited to material things either. She's also a massive attention freak. Notice how their crew isn't dressed for stealth combat like most purgers. They deck their cars out with lights and blast loud music. They wear skimpy outfits and wear mascot costumes and anime masks. For them, Purge is all about being the center of attention, taking whatever they want, and taking out anyone who tries to stop them. Her crew is so self-absorbed that they don't even hear Laney's van driving up to take them out. This is actually one of many just kind of dumb moments in this movie. Like when Leo and the Senator encounter the swinging pendulum and they try to time it when there's clearly just plenty of room for them to crawl underneath. I feel like I'm willing to forgive some of the ridiculousness though, because this entry does have probably my favorite line in the franchise.
We are going to use this year's purge to do some spring cleaning, gentlemen.
The next Purge installment would be the poorly titled prequel, The First Purge, which I've already covered here on Things You Missed when it came out in 2018, but it doesn't really hold up. Like, I need to redo the video and make it good this time. I would always try to do these episodes when the movie was in theaters to capitalize on the hype, but now that movies aren't in theaters, I realize I can make a much better episode if I just take my time with it. So join me in the next Things You Missed as we revisit The First Purge. Remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring the death bell and select all notifications, and I will see you in the next one, assuming we both survive. If you don't want to get purged, stay home, wear a mask if you go out for essentials, you know the drill.